Black paper versus white paper. Later today, the finance minister will be presenting that white paper in Parliament. To talk more about this, we're now joined by Mitali Nikore, Chief Economist, founder, Nikore Associates, and Aditi Phadnis, political editor, Business Standard. Thank you so much both for joining us. First to Aditi Phadnis, of course, a lot of posturing, a lot of politics ahead, ahead of the elections on the economy. But what purpose do you think this white paper is going to now serve?
Well, white papers classically are legislative proposals which, at least in British Parliament, are legislative proposals, both sides of which are discussed and it is put out in the public domain. It is largely meant to be for the future, what could happen if a particular policy is put in place. Now, you today have in India a white paper, a black paper. No doubt there will be yellow, red and green papers as well in the future. This is not really a white paper, what the government is going to put forward, although we don't know what there is in it yet. But what is the purpose of a white paper is quite different from the use to which both the opposition and the government are putting it.
That's right. If we talk about, this purpose, as we said, it's all politics right now. It's all, gearing up towards the election. Mitali Nikore. So we're going to see the government today, when this white paper is presented, really talking about how terrible the state of the economy was at the end of the UPA regime, at the end of 2 terms of the UPA, and in comparison to that, highlight how well the Modi government has done in terms of the economy. But the Congress has been hitting out over the data that's available.
So thanks a lot for that comment, and I completely agree, of course, with Aditi ma'am that this is not what we call a classic white paper, but it's interesting because there's a saying amongst economists that you can use statistics for anything as long as you have the right statistics. I think what we are going to be seeing today in this white paper,
the comparison, yes, that's exactly. Also very important.
Yes, exactly. So we will probably, and it's interesting to see both the black paper and the white paper come out on the same day. To be honest, as an academic, as an economist, I'm very keen to study both the documents and really look at, truly what has been the actual achievement of the last 10 years. Compare it with, the last 20 years when we look at growth, and look at, some of the key indicators that I would be looking out for in both these papers would be around, of course, GDP growth, but also inequality. What do these papers say on inequality? Because it's not as though inequality has only grown in our country in the last 10 years. Inequality has been growing for the last 3 or 4 decades. So, what has each government really done to combat inequality is something I would want to look for. And the second thing I'd want to look for is what are the government's forward-looking commitments? And, it's one thing to say that this is what we achieved in the last 10 years, and that's wonderful. But, how are we going to keep our growth climate resilient in the face of climate change? How are we going to bring jobs in an increasingly economy where the skill gaps are continuing to be immense, and we have the advent of AI and other tech, sort of threats in a sense to skill training and job creation? How are we going to leverage it? So I think these are 2 or 3 areas which I would want to say that, I'd like to see a forward-looking approach rather than to say that this is what we have achieved. Sure, we have achieved, but now what are we going to be doing going forward?
And these are the failings of the UPA government. Aditi Phadnis, as Mitali was saying there, that economists would be looking for, if we go by the true sense of a white paper, what are the plans for the future going forward? But and this is something that the Congress and the opposition has hit out at the Modi government about how they're constantly bringing up the past rather than focusing on the future. And can we expect more of the same today when this white paper will be presented in Parliament, and the various failures of the UPA regime will be talked about? Also, already we've heard the comments about how under the UPA, the India's economy just went from 12th to 11th, but under the Modi government, it has come up, and we're expecting to be the 3rd largest economy.
Well, to be honest, I would like to reserve judgment until the white paper is actually tabled.
Sure.
We have to be very careful because it is now part of, after it's tabled, it is part of Parliament's records. So you cannot take this non-seriously. It has to be taken very seriously. It is the authoritative statement by government on what the statistics were then and what they are today. There are so many things which have happened. I mean, I'm a student of Hindi literature, and in Hindi literature there is a tool of analysis called Desh, Kal, Vatavaran. You have to analyze everything in a context of the place where it is located, the time when it is located, and the atmosphere in which it is located. I would say the same thing about the white paper which is going to be presented. We have to look at everything in context. So it's not correct to say that, say for instance, the conclusion that the opposition is drawing that MGNREGA has been scaled down. What the government is saying is, actually, we have just removed the inefficiencies in the distribution of funds as well as jobs in the MGNREGA program, and we find that because there is no duplication, there is no need for that level of
and what
funding.
Would you say on...
This is just an example.
All right, on Mr. Tharoor's remarks, where he spoke and he said no data available, that's NDA, and he's questioned some of the numbers that the government cites.
I'm afraid this is if I may say so, kind of intellectual laziness. There are many ways of getting at the data. Yes, data is more difficult to get at now, but everywhere across the world, economic agencies, investment agencies are doing their business on the basis of some data. So you can't make a blanket statement that there is no data available. There is. You have to derive it. It's harder to access, no doubt, but I'm sure Mitali is not operating on the basis of no data.
I'm sure, yes. Exactly. And Mitali, final comments. It's interesting that this white paper is coming out today at a time when the southern states have been targeting or hitting out at the center, claiming there's discrimination in the fund allocation. Even today, you have the Kerala Chief Minister marching on the streets of Delhi, highlighting just this very issue about the South not getting their share of the funds, or as Tamil Nadu has been doing, or for any sort of environmental crisis, the cyclones, the flooding. They claim they're not getting funds from the center.
No, absolutely, Gargi. I think just a quick reaction on the point of data availability. I think, for trained economists and for all of us in the community, we have been able to get data quite easily. There's a lot of data that is available on the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation website. In fact, very encouragingly, it's a very small issue, but it's available in Excel format. So, it makes it all that much easier and easy for my teams to also analyze and derive results out of it. So I don't think that the point on data availability is as dire. Yes, absolutely, sometimes one has to delve into long reports and pull out the data, but it is available. So that is the first point. And then secondly, on the issue of fiscal division of tax revenues, the finance committee and the finance commission, which has been formed, the 15th finance commission, I think one of the considerations for the finance commission going forward should be to look at environmental disasters. The point that is being made is not incorrect, that there are certain states which are more vulnerable to environmental disasters. It's not that they can control it, right? This is a geographical issue. Even states like Assam, I'm not even talking about the southern states, but even eastern states like Assam or West Bengal, which are vulnerable to cyclones, they also would require support if a cyclone comes. So I think there is a need for the finance commission itself to deliberate on how do you compensate a state which has gone through a natural disaster, and how does the reconstruction and rebuilding effort happen. And this is going to be increasingly relevant with the climate change crisis.
Right, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much, Mitali Nikore and Aditi Phadnis, for joining us. And